Up is Rosalind Chapman, a queer indie game designer who likes crunchy, overcomplicated games, talking about hunger mechanics.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to. Whoops. I'm going to jump right into it just because 10 minutes is not a lot of time. I hope everybody's having a really great roguelike celebration. My name's Rosalind Chapman. You can find me at Twitter at Rosalind with a Y, MC. And you can play my games on rosepulp.wordpress.com. And I'm going to be talking about Hungry Rogues. I'm going to talk about hunger mechanics in roguelikes. So let's move on. So hunger mechanics. So some people who are only familiar with really modern roguelikes might be a little bit confused by this because hunger mechanics are sort of a staple of old roguelikes, but they don't make it into a lot of newer roguelikes in a very conventional form. Instead, the sort of system and dynamics still exists, but it comes in different forms than a traditional hunger mechanic. So why do these games have hunger mechanics in the first place? And what is a hunger mechanic? So roguelikes typically have this tension where the roguelike protagonist gets stronger the more they explore, the more they fight things. Basically, if you could grind, it would be the best thing to do because you'd get more powerful, and that's just a thing that happens. And the games only tend to get more difficult the further in the dungeon you progress. So this creates a tension because it means that the optimal way to play the game is a way that's not really fun, because you're encouraged to basically, if you had absolutely no time pressures whatsoever, you'd be encouraged to basically grind out early levels as thoroughly and absolutely as possible, never progressing anywhere until you've completely exhausted every resource in every previous zone. And what hunger does is it turns time into a resource. So now grinding and thorough exploration are a strategic choice that you have to weigh up against other options rather than just a clearly optimal strategy. So the traditional hunger mechanic is hunger. So your character gets hungrier over time, they get weaker, their health regeneration turns off, they lose health over time, possibly they just die at a certain point. And you deal with this via items. This can add an element of inventory management to the game, because typically your hunger can only go so positive, so you want to keep some items around. So if your game has limited inventory, that becomes another consideration. And another way that that can work is there can be magic items that deal with hunger. So like in Pixel Rogue, for example, there's like a cornucopia item that takes up your trinket slot. And the trinket slot can be kind of cool and helpful. But not having to deal with the hunger mechanic is also really helpful. So it adds a bunch of trade-offs there. It also limits really powerful options that take a really long time, like sleeping or kiting enemies, which can be really effective, but they're not the most fun to play. So yeah, that's what traditional hunger does. More modern games have this same sort of time pressure approach, but they've done it in a very different way. So a lot of games have systems where you just can't thoroughly explore. There's lots of mutually exclusive choices in where you travel. There's a lot of mutually exclusive choices in where you travel. And if you go down one path, you absolutely cannot ever go down the other path. What is really neat about these systems is they turn a previously invisible layer of strategy about how much do you push your luck of thorough exploration versus your dwindling food. And they make it really explicit. If I go down this path, I will face this challenge and get this reward. If I go down this path, I will face that challenge and get that reward. What does my run need right now? What does my run need in the future? Which is really neat. Another way to do this is with monsters. This is really common in board games that are very roguelike adjacent, but it can be all over the place. So the only way that this works is if the rewards for defeating monsters don't outweigh the costs for fighting them, because otherwise you would just be able to grind infinitely. But if monsters are seriously threatening or they don't really give you anything, then monsters can be a good way to push people forward. and you can use monsters as a clock. And what's wonderful about monsters is there's a lot of counterplay to monsters. Because combat is already likely your most detailed system in a roguelike, you can evade monsters and you can try to power through monsters. Rather than just having like, sometimes players find it really arbitrary and there's a lot of really bad game feel attached to a timer that just kills you. So monsters can be a really good way of avoiding all those problems. Sometimes the monsters kind of break the normal rules, like in Splunky, where you have a completely invincible monster. But the point is still the same. It's a thing that pushes the clock. There's some other unique ways that people have done it. There's like difficulty scaling. Basically in Invisible Ink and Risk of Rain, literally everything in the game just gets harder the longer you stick around, which is, it's kind of like the pure version of this. It is, remove everything else. This is the absolute baseline essentials of these types of mechanics, is the game should get harder somehow from spending time. So these games just make it harder every way by spending too much time. And another mechanic is in a game like Darkest Dungeon or Infra Arcana, they use a stress mechanic, which is like a secondary health resource that doesn't come back very easily. You can use some things to minimize stress gain, but there's basically no way you will ever break even or like net positive on these resources. They are things that are dwindling and they put a hard cap on your run. I'm going to quickly talk about what I'm going to try to do special in my game Castle Cthulhu. I don't know how much time I have left, but basically I'm going to have a bunch of haunts, which are spooky effects that happen if you linger too long in this horrible castle that wants you dead. So suits of armor might animate, doors might randomly jam, forcing you to like have to do like a little mini game where you force the lock. Things might collapse off certain passageways, and monsters can spawn in weird ways. An important part about these haunts is lots of horror games have used a similar system of, ooh, when your character sees spooky stuff, here's a list of bad things that can happen, but they're usually very aesthetic focused. So an important thing about haunts in this game, in order for them to serve that purpose, is that all of them can kill you. They are all going to screw with your map or spawn things that are dangerous. None of these are things you want. They are bad things. And I can tie it in thematically, which is really nice. So haunts will accumulate over time, but they can go up really sharply when you read that ancient arcane tome of forbidden knowledge, which is great flavor, and I love it. I don't know how much time I have left. But thank you everyone for listening.
Yes. Perfect time. You had 1 minute. So.
Oh, I have 1 minute. My name is Rosalind Chapman again. You can play my games at rosepulp.wordpress.com. And yeah, I'd appreciate any questions. And
wonderful. Is there maybe a place people can find you to ask questions later on in the day? You want to pick a room?
Later on in the day, probably Twitter, but for right now, within the space, I'm currently in just the main area, but
awesome.
I might go off to one of the...
Cool.
I haven't thought of where I'm going to go.
That's fine. People want me to make sure to mention that your drawings and those slides were absolutely wonderful. Everyone loved them very much.
Thank you.
So,
these are the drawings.
Thank you very much. Yes.